Our next verse on Exodus chapter 33 is on, not on Moses. This time the connection is on Joshua. It's very interesting to take into consideration the background of Joshua. Of course, we know the sixth book of the Old Testament is the book of Joshua, but we know that Joshua appears here, Exodus chapter 33, and most probably would have been alive through most of the events in the book of Exodus. Whether we think of the plagues, he may well have been younger then. The crossing of the Red Sea, the provision of the manna, the water from the rock, Exodus 17. We know that it was there in Exodus 17 because it's referred to as Joshua, he defeated the Amalekites with the edge of the sword, so we know he was active by chapter 17. So most likely, most of the events in the book of Exodus belong to the childhood of Joshua, and that's something that's forgotten whenever we go to the book of Joshua. But here we see in verse 11 that in this section, rather, verses 7 to 11, Moses has a special fellowship with God. But we know this in verse 11, the Lord spoke to Moses face to face as a man speaks to his friend, and he would return to the camp. But it's the next section that we want to read. But his servant Joshua, the son of Nun, a young man, did not depart from the tabernacle. So we see Moses was an influence on Joshua. Joshua made him, gave him that example, and an example of dedication, because the Lord spoke to Moses face to face, but Joshua would not depart from that tabernacle. We know Deuteronomy later on, in the latter chapters of Deuteronomy, that Moses is told to encourage him. But here we see an example in Joshua. His servant Joshua, I thought that was quite good. If you want to be a leader, the way to do it is to serve. Remember, Jesus said, the Son of Man has come not to be served, but to serve and to give his life a ransom for many. Whosoever will be greatest among you, let him be servant of all and last of all. And this was true of Joshua here in Exodus chapter 33. Then the other aspect of this is that he was a young man. So here we have an example, and this seems to be emphasis in comparison to Moses. Not that Moses was old, but in comparison to Moses, it definitely was younger. So you have an example here of Moses and Joshua, a younger man and an older man working together. Of course, this then we can translate that into New Testament. We think of Paul and Timothy, and the example of those two particular groups of people working together. Of course, it leaves the obvious question, what example am I setting for others? Paul said to Timothy, be an example of the believers in word, in behavior, in love, in spirit, in faith, and purity. 1 Timothy 4, verse 12. And he also said to the Thessalonians, you were ensamples to all that believe in Macedonia and Achaia. And so the challenge is, as we think about Exodus 33, not now Moses' time, but this time Joshua, what example am I setting? And what example does Joshua set us for our lives? Thank you for listening.